In the dead of night, Bia, a girl of merely 6 years old, awakens to the acrid scent of smoke. Her heightened senses alert her that something is terribly wrong. The orange glow dancing on the walls confirms her fears. The house is ablaze. "Mommy? Daddy?" Bia calls out, her trembling voice echoing through the silent hallway. Met with no response, Bia knows she must act quickly. The intense heat and thick smoke make every second precious. With her heart pounding in her chest, Bia slides out of bed, her small feet touching the warm floor. The carpet, usually soft and comforting, now feels like a treacherous path leading into uncertainty. She takes a deep breath, trying to remember what her parents and teachers had taught her about fire safety. Stay low, find a way out, don't hide. These instructions repeat in her mind like a mantra as she drops to her hands and knees. The smoke is less dense near the floor, allowing Bia to see a little better and breathe more easily. She crawls towards her bedroom door, the heat growing more intense with each movement. Reaching up, she touches the door handle cautiously, remembering another crucial lesson: check if the door is hot before opening it. To her relief, the handle isn't scorching, but it's warm enough to make her hesitate. Gathering her courage, Bia turns the handle and pushes the door open slightly. A rush of hot air and thicker smoke billows in, causing her to cough and squint her eyes. The hallway, once a familiar path to her parents' room, now looks like a terrifying tunnel of smoke and flickering shadows. Bia's fear threatens to overwhelm her, but she pushes it down, focusing on her next move. She needs to find her parents or get out of the house, whichever comes first. With determination beyond her years, Bia ventures into the hallway, staying close to the wall for guidance. The smoke stings her eyes and makes it hard to breathe, but she presses on, calling out for her parents between coughs. "Mommy. Daddy. Where are you?" Her voice, small and scared, is nearly drowned out by the crackling of flames and the ominous creaking of the house around her. As Bia makes her way down the hall, she notices the heat is more intense coming from the direction of her parents' bedroom. Her heart sinks as she realizes she might not be able to reach them. Tears stream down her face, cutting clean paths through the soot that has begun to cover her cheeks. She wants nothing more than to run to their room, to be scooped up in their arms and told everything will be okay. But deep down, Bia knows she needs to save herself. With a heavy heart, she turns away from her parents' room and crawls towards the stairs. The journey down the staircase is perilous. The smoke is thicker here, and Bia can see flames licking at the walls of the living room below. She descends backwards, one step at a time, her small hands gripping each stair tightly. Halfway down, she hears a loud crash from somewhere in the house, causing her to freeze in terror. The sound galvanizes her into action, and she scrambles down the remaining stairs as quickly as she can. At the bottom, Bia pauses to orient herself. The front door seems miles away, obscured by a wall of smoke and flame. She remembers another exit, the back door through the kitchen. Staying low, she makes her way across the living room, navigating around furniture that now looks like looming monsters in the firelight. The kitchen is marginally clearer, but the smoke is still thick enough to make Bia's lungs burn with each breath. She reaches the back door, her small hand grasping the handle. It's hot, but not unbearably so. With all her might, she turns the handle and pushes. The door swings open, and a gust of cool night air rushes in, momentarily clearing the smoke around her. Bia stumbles out into the backyard, coughing and gasping for fresh air. The grass feels cool and damp under her bare feet, a stark contrast to the inferno she just escaped. She runs to the big oak tree at the back of the yard, remembering it as the meeting spot her family had designated in case of emergencies. Turning back to face the house, Bea watches in horror and awe as flames engulf her home. The windows glow orange and smoke billows into the night sky. In the distance, she can hear sirens approaching, their wailing growing louder with each passing second. Neighbors begin to emerge from their homes, alerted by the commotion. An elderly couple from next door spots Bea and rushes to her side. Mrs. Johnson wraps her in a warm embrace, while Mr. Johnson calls out to others for help. The little girl is here. Someone call 911. Bea, exhausted and overwhelmed, begins to sob uncontrollably in Mrs. Johnson's arms. "My mommy and daddy," she chokes out between sobs. "They're still inside." The neighbors exchange worried glances, their faces illuminated by the glow of the fire. They try to comfort Bea as best they can, assuring her that help is on the way. Within minutes, fire trucks arrive, their red lights painting the street in an eerie, pulsating glow. Firefighters leap into action, unrolling hoses and assessing the situation. One of them, a kind-faced woman, approaches Bea and kneels beside her. "Hey there, brave girl," she says softly. "Can you tell me your name and who else was in the house?" Bea, still trembling, manages to answer. "I'm Bea. My mommy and daddy are inside. I couldn't find them." The firefighter nods, her expression serious but reassuring. "You did the right thing by getting out, Bea. We're going to do everything we can to help your parents. Right now, I need you to go with this nice paramedic who's going to make sure you're okay." As Bea is led to a waiting ambulance, she watches the firefighters enter her home, disappearing into the smoke and flames. Time seems to stand still as she sits wrapped in a blanket, a paramedic gently checking her for injuries. The night air is filled with the sounds of crackling flames, shouting firefighters, and the constant drone of emergency vehicle engines. Bea's eyes never leave the front door of her house, silently willing her parents to emerge. After what feels like an eternity, there's a commotion at the entrance. Two firefighters appear, carrying unconscious forms between them. Bea's heart leaps as she recognizes her parents. They're placed on stretchers and quickly moved to waiting ambulances. In the chaos that follows, Bea is reunited with her parents at the hospital. Her mother and father, though injured, are alive thanks to the firefighters' swift action and Bea's quick thinking in raising the alarm. As the family recovers, Bea is hailed as a little hero. Her bravery in the face of such a terrifying situation becomes a story of inspiration for the community. In the days and weeks that follow, as the family begins to rebuild their lives from the ashes of their home, Bea's nightmare slowly transforms into a testament to her courage and the enduring strength of familial love. The experience, though traumatic, ignites in Bea a passion for helping others. As she grows older, she carries with her the lessons learned that fateful night, the importance of preparedness, the power of keeping calm under pressure, and the profound impact of community support in times of crisis. The little girl who once crawled through smoke and flames emerges as a beacon of resilience. Her story a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and bravery can light the way forward. Bea's heart raced as she navigated through the inferno that had once been her family home. The crackling flames and thick smoke threatened to overwhelm her senses, but she pressed on, driven by an unwavering determination to reach her parents' bedroom. As she finally approached their door, a wave of dread washed over her. The door was locked, and she could hear no response from within. "Dad! Mom! Wake up," she cried out, her fists pounding against the unyielding wood. The toxic fumes had likely rendered Marcelo and Amanda unconscious, leaving them helpless on the other side. In that critical moment, as if to punctuate the direness of their situation, the ceiling began to cave in, blocking the main exit and leaving Bia with the crushing realization that her family's survival rested solely on her young shoulders. Time seemed to slow as Bia's mind raced through possible solutions. She knew that every second counted, and the relentless fire showed no signs of abating. The heat pressed against her skin, reminding her of the urgency of the situation. She tried to calm her panicked breathing, forcing herself to think clearly despite the chaos surrounding her. Bia's eyes darted around, searching for anything that could help her break through the door. In the hallway, partially obscured by fallen debris, she spotted her father's toolbox. With renewed hope, she carefully made her way towards it, dodging falling embers and navigating through the thickening smoke. Reaching the toolbox, Bia frantically rummaged through its contents. Her hands, trembling from both fear and adrenaline, finally closed around a solid object, a hammer. She gripped it tightly, its weight providing a small measure of comfort in the face of the daunting task ahead. Turning back to the bedroom door, Bia steeled herself for what she knew would be a grueling effort. She began to strike the door near the lock, each blow reverberating through her arms. The noise was deafening, a stark contrast to the eerie silence from within the room. As she worked, Bia's mind wandered to happier times, family dinners, movie nights, and lazy Sunday mornings filled with laughter and love. These memories fueled her resolve, giving her the strength to continue even as her arms began to ache and her lungs burned from the acrid smoke. She couldn't lose her parents, not like this. The thought of life without them was unbearable, spurring her to redouble her efforts. Minutes passed like hours as Bia relentlessly attacked the door. Finally, with a resounding crack, the wood around the lock began to splinter. Hope surged through her as she realized she was making progress. With renewed vigor, she continued her assault on the weakened area until, at last, the door gave way. Bia stumbled into the room, momentarily disoriented by the sudden change in her surroundings. The bedroom was filled with thick, black smoke that stung her eyes and made it difficult to see. Dropping to her hands and knees, where the air was marginally clearer, Bia crawled towards the bed. Her heart pounded in her chest as she reached out, her hands making contact with the still forms of her parents. "Mom, Dad, please wake up," she pleaded, shaking them gently at first, then more forcefully as panic began to set in. To her immense relief, she heard a faint groan from her father. Marcelo's eyes fluttered open, confusion evident in his gaze as he tried to make sense of the situation. "Bia? What's happening?" he mumbled, his voice hoarse from the smoke. Bia quickly explained the dire circumstances, her words tumbling out in a rush. Understanding dawned on Marcelo's face, and he immediately moved to rouse Amanda. As Bia's mother slowly regained consciousness, Marcelo took charge of the situation. Years of emergency preparedness training kicked in, and he quickly assessed their options for escape. The main exit was blocked, and the fire was spreading rapidly. Their only hope lay in the second-story window. Marcelo instructed Bia to grab blankets from the bed while he searched for anything they could use to create a makeshift rope. Amanda, still groggy but aware of the danger, began tying the blankets together with shaking hands. The family worked in tandem, their movements driven by desperation and the primal instinct to survive. As they worked, the roar of the fire grew louder, and the temperature in the room rose to unbearable levels. Sweat poured down their faces, mixing with tears of fear and determination. Bia couldn't help but think of all the possessions they were leaving behind, photos, mementos, and cherished items that held a lifetime of memories. But she knew that none of it mattered as long as they made it out alive together. With their improvised rope complete, Marcelo secured one end to the sturdy bed frame and tossed the other out the window. The cool night air that rushed in provided a moment of relief from the stifling heat. Marcelo turned to his family, his face etched with concern and love. "Bia, you'll go first. Your mother and I will be right behind you. Remember what we practiced in our fire drills, stay calm and take it slow." Bia nodded, swallowing hard as she approached the window. The ground seemed impossibly far away, but she knew she had no choice. With trembling hands, she gripped the makeshift rope and began her descent. The rough fabric of the tied blankets bit into her palms, but she hardly noticed the pain. Her focus was solely on reaching the ground safely, one precarious step at a time. As Bia neared the bottom, she heard sirens in the distance. Help was coming, but would it arrive in time? She touched down on the grass, her legs nearly buckling beneath her from relief and exhaustion. Looking up, she saw her mother beginning her descent. Amanda moved slowly, her movements hindered by the effects of smoke inhalation. Bia held her breath, silently urging her mother to move faster as the flames began to lick at the window frame above. Finally, Amanda reached the ground, collapsing into Bia's arms. They both turned their gaze upward, watching anxiously as Marcelo started his descent. He had barely cleared the window when a loud crack echoed through the night. The weakened structure of the house was giving way, and flames erupted from the bedroom window with renewed ferocity. Marcelo quickened his pace, knowing that seconds could mean the difference between life and death. Time seemed to stand still as Bia and Amanda watched Marcelo's perilous journey. Just as it seemed the rope might give way under the assault of the flames, Marcelo's feet touched the ground. The family embraced, tears streaming down their soot-stained faces as the reality of their narrow escape began to sink in. They stumbled away from the burning house, collapsing on the front lawn as fire trucks and ambulances arrived on the scene. As paramedics rushed to attend to them, Bia looked back at the inferno that had nearly claimed their lives. The house that had been their sanctuary, the backdrop to countless happy memories, was now engulfed in flames. But as she felt the comforting presence of her parents beside her, Bia realized that home wasn't just a physical place. It was the love and bond they shared as a family, a connection that even the fiercest fire couldn't destroy. In the days and weeks that followed, as they began the long process of rebuilding their lives, Bia's family would often reflect on that harrowing night. They marveled at the courage and quick thinking of their young daughter, whose actions had saved them all. The experience had changed them, instilling a deep appreciation for life and for each other. They knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their bond strengthened by the fire that had threatened to tear them apart. As the community rallied around them, offering support and assistance, Bia and her parents found hope in the kindness of others and in their own resilience. They had lost much, but they had gained a profound understanding of what truly mattered. Their story became one of inspiration, a testament to the power of love, bravery, and the unbreakable spirit of family in the face of adversity. In the heart of a bustling apartment complex, a drama was unfolding that would forever change the lives of its residents. At the center of this whirlwind of emotions and actions was Bia, a young girl whose courage and quick thinking were about to be put to the ultimate test. The day had started like any other, with the familiar sounds of neighbors going about their routines, but in an instant, everything changed when Bia realized her parents were in grave danger. The air in the apartment grew thick with tension as Bia frantically assessed the situation. Her mother lay unconscious on the kitchen floor, while her father struggled to breathe in the living room. Time seemed to slow down as Bia's mind raced, searching for a way to save the two people she loved most in the world. She knew she couldn't do it alone, but fear and uncertainty paralyzed her for a moment. It was in this critical juncture that fate intervened, bringing two unlikely allies to her aid. Mr. Joao, the elderly gentleman from the neighboring apartment, had always been a solitary figure. His wrinkled face and stooped shoulders told the story of a life filled with experiences, both joyful and sorrowful. For years, he had kept to himself, nursing an old grudge against Bia's family over a trivial dispute about noise levels. But as he heard the commotion from next door, something stirred within his aged heart. Perhaps it was the memory of his own daughter, long since moved away, or maybe it was simply the human instinct to help in times of crisis. Whatever the reason, Mr. Joao found himself setting aside years of resentment and moving towards the door with a determination he hadn't felt in decades. As Mr. Joao made his way to Bia's apartment, another resident was also answering the call to action. Luisa, a bright-eyed medical student living on the floor below, had been engrossed in her studies when the sound of distress reached her ears. Without a second thought, she grabbed her first aid kit, a constant companion during her rigorous training. Her young face set with determination, Luisa bounded up the stairs, her mind already cycling through potential scenarios and treatments. She knew that every second counted in emergencies, and her legs carried her swiftly towards the unfolding crisis. The convergence of these three individuals, Bia, the desperate daughter, Mr. Joao, the redeemed neighbor, and Luisa, the aspiring doctor, at the threshold of the apartment marked the beginning of a tense and emotional rescue operation. As Bia flung open the door, her eyes wild with fear and hope, she was met with the sight of her two neighbors, ready and willing to help. The contrast between them was striking. Mr. Joao's weathered hands trembled slightly with age, while Luisa's steady grip on her medical kit spoke of youthful confidence and trained expertise. Without wasting a moment, the unlikely trio sprang into action. Luisa took charge, her medical training kicking in as she quickly assessed the situation. She directed Bia to her father, guiding the young girl on how to help him into a position that would ease his breathing. Meanwhile, Mr. Joao, despite his age, showed surprising strength as he helped Luisa move Bia's mother into a recovery position. The old man's face was etched with concern, all thoughts of past grievances forgotten in the face of this dire situation. As Luisa worked tirelessly, her hands moving with practiced precision as she checked vital signs and administered first aid, she began to see the human story behind the medical emergency. She saw the love in Bia's eyes as the girl held her father's hand, whispering words of encouragement. She noticed the gentle way Mr. Joao stroked Bia's mother's forehead, as if trying to comfort her through sheer force of will. In that moment, Luisa realized that being a doctor was about more than just treating symptoms. It was about healing people, families, and communities. Mr. Joao, for his part, felt a profound shift in his perspective. As he watched Bia's unwavering dedication to her parents and Luisa's selfless efforts to save them, he was reminded of the importance of human connection. The walls he had built around himself over the years began to crumble, replaced by a sense of purpose and belonging he had long forgotten. He found himself offering words of comfort to Bia, his voice gruff with emotion but warm with newfound affection. Time seemed to stretch on endlessly as they waited for the paramedics to arrive. Each minute felt like an hour, filled with tense silences broken only by Luisa's calm instructions and the ragged breathing of Bia's parents. Throughout it all, Bia remained a pillar of strength, her young face set with a determination that belied her years. She moved between her parents, offering words of love and encouragement, her presence a balm to their pain. When the wail of sirens finally pierced the air, a collective sigh of relief echoed through the apartment. As the paramedics rushed in, taking over with professional efficiency, the three neighbors found themselves standing together, united by the intensity of their shared experience. They watched as Bia's parents were carefully loaded onto stretchers, the girl never leaving their side. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between Mr. Joao and Luisa. They would not abandon Bia now. As the ambulance departed, its lights flashing against the gathering dusk, the three remained in the empty apartment, the echo of recent events hanging heavily in the air. It was Mr. Joao who broke the silence, his voice rough with emotion as he suggested they all go to the hospital together. Luisa nodded in agreement, her hand resting supportively on Bia's shoulder. The young girl looked up at her neighbors, her eyes brimming with gratitude and unshed tears. The journey to the hospital was a quiet one, each lost in their own thoughts. Bia sat between Mr. Joao and Luisa in the taxi, drawing strength from their presence. As they waited in the sterile corridors of the emergency room, a bond began to form between them, one forged in the crucible of crisis and compassion. Mr. Joao found himself sharing stories of his own life, of joys and regrets, his words bringing a small smile to Bia's worried face. Luisa, still in her role as caretaker, ensured that Bia ate and rested, all the while explaining medical procedures in terms the young girl could understand. As dawn broke, bringing with it news of Bia's parents' recovery, the three found themselves forever changed. Mr. Joao rediscovered the joy of connection, vowing to be a part of his community once more. Luisa's passion for medicine was reinforced, now tempered with a deep understanding of the human element in healing. And Bia, young as she was, had learned profound lessons about courage, community, and the strength found in unity. In the days and weeks that followed, the bonds formed that night only grew stronger. Mr. Joao became a grandfatherly figure to Bia, his apartment no longer a solitary haven but a place of warmth and stories. Luisa found mentors in Bia's parents and a little sister in Bia herself, her medical journey now enriched by the support of her newfound family. The apartment complex, once just a collection of separate lives, had become a true community, brought together by one night of crisis and compassion. As life settled into a new normal, the story of that night became legend in the building, a testament to the power of human connection and the strength found in times of adversity. It served as a reminder that heroes come in all ages and forms, and that the truest form of heroism often lies in the simple act of reaching out to those in need. In the end, it was not just Bia's parents who were saved that night, but the hearts and souls of all those involved, forever transformed by the power of compassion and community. In the depths of a quiet night, when shadows danced on walls and the world seemed to hold its breath, young Bia found herself facing a moment that would define her beyond her tender years. The air grew thick with an acrid scent, a telltale sign of danger that most children her age might have slept through or ignored. But Bia was different. Her mind, sharp and clear even in the haze of slumber, recalled with vivid clarity the lessons from her school's fire safety classes. It was as if those instructors, with their serious faces and emphatic gestures, stood before her now, guiding her actions in this crucial moment. With a determination that belied her age, Bia sprang into action. Her first thought was not of her own safety, but of her parents, still unaware of the peril creeping through their home. The smoke, an insidious intruder, was already seeping under the door of her parents' bedroom. Bia knew she had to act fast, her young heart pounding with a mixture of fear and resolve. She darted to the bathroom, her small feet padding quietly on the cool tiles. With practiced ease, she reached for a towel, her mind recalling the words of her teacher, "A wet barrier can buy precious time." Under the faucet, she soaked the towel, the water cold against her skin, a stark contrast to the warmth of the encroaching danger. The weight of the sodden fabric challenged her, but Bia persevered, dragging it to her parents' door. With careful precision, she laid the wet towel along the base of the door, creating a makeshift seal against the creeping smoke. The action, simple yet crucial, filled her with a sense of accomplishment. But Bia knew her task was far from over. The smoke might be temporarily at bay, but her parents remained trapped in their slumber, unaware of the dangers surrounding them. Bia's mind raced, searching for the next step in her impromptu rescue plan. Her gaze fell upon the kitchen, and an idea sparked. Water had been her ally against the smoke, perhaps it could serve her again. With renewed purpose, she made her way to the kitchen, her eyes scanning for the largest pot she could manage. Finding a suitable vessel, Bia filled it with water from the sink. The pot grew heavy in her small hands, threatening to spill with each careful step she took back towards her parents' room. But Bia's determination outweighed the strain on her arms. She knew that this water could be the key to rousing her parents from their dangerous sleep. As she approached the bedroom door, Bia realized she faced a new challenge. The door, a formidable barrier, stood between her and her sleeping parents. She knew she couldn't open it alone, the handle too high and the weight too much for her small frame. In this moment of doubt, Bia heard movement behind her. Turning, she saw her siblings, João and Luisa, awakened by the commotion or perhaps by the same instinct that had roused Bia. Their eyes, wide with fear and confusion, met Bia's determined gaze. In that silent exchange, an understanding passed between them. Without a word, João and Luisa moved to Bia's side, ready to help in whatever way they could. Bia, now the unspoken leader of this young rescue team, gestured towards the door. João, the eldest, nodded in understanding. Together, the three children faced the unyielding wood, a barrier between them and their parents' safety. With a collective deep breath, they launched themselves at the door. The first attempt yielded nothing but a dull thud and a collective wince of pain. But Bia, drawing strength from some hidden reserve, urged them to try again. On the second push, they felt a slight give in the wood. Encouraged, they threw themselves against the door with renewed vigor. The third attempt brought a satisfying crack, and with the fourth, the door burst open, nearly sending the children tumbling into the smoke-filled room. The scene before them was one of eerie stillness. Their parents lay motionless on the bed, oblivious to the dangers surrounding them. The smoke, thicker here, made breathing difficult. Bia knew they had little time. With the pot of water clutched tightly in her hands, she approached the bed. For a moment, doubt flickered across Bia's face. Was this the right thing to do? The weight of responsibility pressed down on her young shoulders. But as she looked at her parents' peaceful faces, contrasting sharply with the danger around them, Bia steeled herself. With a silent prayer, she lifted the pot and, in one swift motion, poured the water over her parents' faces. The effect was immediate. Amanda, Bia's mother, jolted awake with a gasp that turned into a cough. Her eyes, wide and disoriented, darted around the room before settling on Bia's face. "Bia," she murmured, her voice hoarse from the smoke and sleep. Beside her, Bia's father stirred, spluttering and wiping water from his eyes. In that moment, as understanding dawned on her parents' faces, Bia felt a rush of relief so powerful it nearly brought her to her knees. She had done it. Against all odds, this young girl had not only recognized the danger but had taken decisive action to save her family. As Amanda sat up, coughing and reaching for her children, the full gravity of the situation began to sink in. The room was filling with smoke, and the distant crackle of flames could now be heard. But thanks to Bia's quick thinking and courage, they were awake and alert, ready to face the danger together. Bia's father, now fully awake, took charge of the situation. He gathered the family close, praising Bia for her bravery and quick thinking. As they made their way out of the smoke-filled house, Bia felt a mix of emotions washing over her. Fear of the fire still lingered, but it was overshadowed by a sense of pride and accomplishment. In the safety of the cool night air, as sirens wailed in the distance and neighbors gathered in concern, Bia stood tall. She had faced a terrifying situation with courage and wisdom beyond her years. The lessons she had learned in school, lessons that might have seemed trivial or boring to some, had given her the tools to save her family. As emergency responders arrived and took control of the scene, Bia's parents couldn't stop marveling at their daughter's actions. They hugged her tightly, their wet clothes a small price to pay for their lives. In the glow of the flashing lights, Bia realized that she had discovered something about herself that night. She had found a strength and presence of mind that she never knew she possessed. In the days and weeks that followed, as the family recovered from their ordeal and began to rebuild, Bia's actions became a source of inspiration. Her school celebrated her bravery, using her story to emphasize the importance of fire safety education. Bia, for her part, took it all in stride. She knew that she had simply done what needed to be done, drawing on the knowledge she had been given and the love she had for her family. The experience changed Bia in subtle but profound ways. She approached life with a new confidence, a deeper appreciation for knowledge, and a keen awareness of the difference one person could make. As she grew older, the night of the fire remained a defining moment in her life, a testament to the power of education, quick thinking, and unwavering courage in the face of danger. In the heart of a bustling city, where towering apartment buildings reached for the sky, lived a family whose lives were about to be changed forever by an extraordinary act of courage. The Silvas were an ordinary family, mother, father, and their two children, João and Luisa. But it was their beloved family dog, Bia, a small but spirited terrier, who would prove to be the unexpected hero of their tale. It was a warm summer evening when disaster struck. The family had just settled in for a quiet night at home, unaware of the danger lurking in the walls of their apartment. As they went about their evening routines, a faulty electrical wire sparked, igniting a fire that would quickly spread through the building. At first, the family remained oblivious to the growing threat. The television droned on in the background, and the children were engrossed in their homework. But Bia, with her keen senses, detected something amiss. She began to bark insistently, her small body tense with alarm. At first, her family dismissed her behavior as a reaction to a passing car or a neighbor's movements. But Bia's barks grew more frantic, and she began to run between family members, tugging at their clothes with her teeth. João, the older of the two children, was the first to take notice of Bia's unusual behavior. He knelt down beside the agitated dog, trying to calm her. It was then that he caught the faint scent of smoke. His eyes widened with realization, and he quickly alerted his parents. The family sprang into action, but as they moved towards the front door, they found their path blocked by thick, acrid smoke pouring in from the hallway. Panic began to set in as the reality of their situation became clear. They were trapped, with the fire rapidly consuming the building around them. The smoke was getting thicker by the minute, making it difficult to breathe and see clearly. In this moment of crisis, it was Bia who once again took charge. The small dog darted towards the window, barking and scratching at the glass. Her actions caught Luisa's attention, and the young girl suddenly remembered the fire escape they had never used. With renewed hope, the family rushed to the window, fumbling with the latch as the heat from the fire began to penetrate their apartment. As Joao pushed open the window, a gust of fresh air rushed in, providing momentary relief from the suffocating smoke. One by one, they climbed out onto the narrow metal platform of the fire escape. The cool night air was a stark contrast to the inferno they had just escaped, but they knew they weren't safe yet. The fire was spreading rapidly, and the entire building groaned under the strain of the flames. Carefully, they began their descent, the metal steps creaking ominously beneath their feet. Bia, too small to navigate the steep stairs on her own, was cradled in Luisa's arms. The young girl held on tightly to her furry savior, whispering words of comfort as they made their way down. They had barely reached the ground when a thunderous crash echoed above them. Looking up, they watched in horror as the ceiling of their apartment collapsed, sending a shower of sparks and debris into the night sky. The realization of how close they had come to tragedy sent a shiver through the family. If not for Bia's warning, they would have still been inside when the ceiling fell. As they stood on the street, watching their home and possessions being consumed by the flames, a sense of gratitude overwhelmed their fear and loss. They were alive, they were together, and it was all thanks to the bravery and instincts of their small, furry family member. The wail of sirens pierced the night as fire trucks arrived on the scene. Firefighters leapt into action, battling the blaze with powerful hoses and unwavering determination. The family watched from a safe distance, huddled together with Bia at their feet, as the firefighters worked tirelessly to bring the inferno under control. In the days that followed, news of Bia's heroic act spread through the community. Local news stations picked up the story, and soon Bia became a symbol of hope and courage in the face of adversity. The tale of how a small dog had saved her family from certain tragedy touched hearts and captured imaginations. Weeks later, as the family began to rebuild their lives, the community came together to honor Bia's bravery. A ceremony was organized in the local park, attended by neighbors, friends, and even strangers who had been moved by the story. The fire chief, a tall man with a kind face weathered by years of service, stood before the gathered crowd, Bia's family by his side. In his hands, he held a small, shiny object, an honorary firefighter's helmet, custom-made to fit a dog of Bia's size. As he knelt down to place it gently on Bia's head, his voice carried across the hushed gathering. "Sometimes," he said, a smile crinkling the corners of his eyes, "the greatest heroes come in the smallest packages." The crowd erupted in applause, and Bia, seeming to sense the importance of the moment, sat perfectly still, the miniature helmet gleaming in the sunlight. But it was what happened next that truly captured the essence of this extraordinary tale. Bia, with a maturity that belied her small stature and furry exterior, looked up at the fire chief and then at her family. In that moment, it was as if she could speak, conveying a message that resonated with everyone present. The family's youngest, Luisa, knelt beside her beloved pet and hugged her tightly. "Bia says she only did what anyone would do for their family," Luisa announced, her voice clear and strong. She says the real hero is the love we have for each other. A collective murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. In that moment, it became clear that this story was about more than just a dog saving her family from a fire. It was a testament to the power of love, the strength of community, and the extraordinary courage that can be found in the most unexpected places. As the ceremony concluded and people began to disperse, many stopped to pet Bia, to shake hands with the Silva family, or simply to share a word of encouragement. The bonds formed that day would last long after the event was over, creating a network of support that would help the family as they rebuilt their lives. In the months that followed, the Silva's story continued to inspire. Local schools invited them to speak about fire safety and the importance of having an emergency plan. Animal shelters reported an increase in adoptions, as people were reminded of the loyalty and love that pets bring to a family. The community came together to help the Silvas find a new home, donating furniture, clothes, and household items to replace what had been lost in the fire. But perhaps the most profound change was in the way people looked at their own lives and relationships. The story of Bia's bravery served as a reminder to cherish the connections we have, to look out for one another, and to recognize that heroism can come in many forms. As for Bia, she remained the same loving, playful dog she had always been, unaware of the impact her actions had made. To her, she had simply protected her family, driven by a love that knew no bounds. And in doing so, she had not only saved lives but had also brought an entire community together, proving that courage and love truly have no age limit. The tale of Bia and the Silva family became a cherished local legend, passed down through generations. It served as a reminder that in our darkest moments, hope can come from the most unexpected sources, and that the bonds of family, whether by blood or by choice, are a powerful force that can overcome any obstacle. In the end, it was a story that celebrated the extraordinary potential that lies within the ordinary, the hero that exists in every act of love, and the profound impact that even the smallest among us can have on the world.